This is The Real Gig with Bret Alexander.
And we're back.
We're back.
I always say that on the second episode. There we are. I was going to do something different, but I think I'm going to just continue where we left off.
Nice.
On the last, you had some. What was that quote you had? That what am I afraid of this week?
Yeah, I am starting to reach a critical point in my life. Yeah. Where in order to actually do the things that I say out loud to people that I'm going to do, I'm going to learn new things a lot all the time. And so one of those things is, facing things I don't want to face. So I say, what am I afraid of this week?
Like,
this is only out of survival. This is no shaman bullshit. This is no,
like going to the Knox and Rattlesnake Roundup or something.
Yeah. I would be afraid.
I got to face the things I fear.
I do have to
face my fears.
I do have to face my fears. Yeah. Yeah, I guess that goes into, at our age, into trying to kind of like go back and keep learning. And that just means unblocking stuff. And that's a whole nother episode.
Okay, explain to
the unblocking, or the unfunny. Like the
unblocking. I want to know. I want to know. I could use this.
Oh, the unblocking.
Unblocking as in.
Well, yeah. So, like in my mind, I'll say, and this is actually about passion as well.
Yeah.
In my mind, I keep thinking in my mind some sort of nirvana of, I always knew I was a late bloomer.
Right.
I didn't know how late. Like I'm just getting the hang of things. Like the last couple of years.
Right. So,
not
quite there yet, but
quite a ways off, like quite a ways off. We're not quite seeing the horizon yet, but in order to do that, it's just the breaking of the habits. It's the breaking of the habits, the doing the things you always did that whether they worked or not, were muscle memory.
Yeah.
And so, I'm trying to just break habits and, some habits just can't be broken, Bret.
They cannot be.
But I've tried to break I'm trying to unblock the things, and that's the facing my fears bit.
Right.
So, what am I afraid of? If I actually write it down, I am screwed, because then everybody knows it.
All right.
Everybody inside here. Everybody knows it now. We are. We are.
I don't want to know.
I don't know. Who have I not met in there? No,
what are the names?
Who are the names of these individuals? I want to know.
Are they in this room?
Are they in this room with us right now? So yeah, just trying to get to the next little bump, and I know I'm not going to get to the next little bump of things if I don't face this thing and say I'm going to, and figure out a way to do actually in a normal way, which is muscle memory. So it just takes a long time to like learn new things. It's not just, that was an interesting fact.
Yeah.
If your factoid, my factoid with this thing requires me to do all the stuff. And again, with perseverance. If you say you want it and you say you're going to do it, and you have the wherewithal to do it, and you set your sights on it, you have to discount the feelings of frustration. Don't discount them. You have to learn how to not have the feelings of frustration and the feelings of like, oops, I think I made a mistake, and the feelings of, all that kind of stuff. And so,
or like,
again, that's the truth. It sucks.
All those feelings not stop you from doing it, basically.
To not stop you from doing it, because the old muscle memory is we're gonna just kind of ignore that, and something will happen maybe at some time, but it's not what you necessarily planned, and it could be a bad thing. It could be a negative thing toward the goal that you say you want to do.
Yeah, right on.
And so I'm screwed. Yeah. And that's what being an adult is. You're screwed.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
When you're a kid and you're just learning, there's all these possibilities.
Right.
When you're an adult and you say you want to do thing and it's your passion.
Yeah.
Then you
following your passion, following your dreams. Part
then
2
we have
here
to act on all of the things and not just the things you like.
Yeah.
I hate it.
Yeah.
not just the things you like. That's the deal. That's the deal.
But you have people out there that do whatever, and they say, "Oh, yeah, I have 20 years experience." It's like, no, you have 1 year's experience 20 times over.
Yes, that's a great point. It's a great point. It's a great point for creatives.
Yeah.
Especially if you have this thing in your mind, and that's why it's important to like play with other people, play gigs with other people, write with other people, do a thing with other people that's not your normal thing, because you're always going to be surprised. We recorded past weekend, and you think pretty much what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But darn it, if there weren't, like, we cut basics for 2 songs.
Yep.
And both times they were like, oh, wow. Oh, this is cool. This sounds kind of better or not better, bigger, more things than I thought it was going to be, because everybody just jumped on the bandwagon right away and worked out the details and took time to work out these like little details and then rehearse the details and do all the things.
Yeah.
And that's where the passion, the rubber meets the road with the passion, and then you got to do the work to follow through to get just to your baseline of what you think something should be cool in your mind. If you really say that, it's kind of like, like trolling or whatever people spout off. Well, they couldn't do the thing they're spouting off about, generally. So, but you have to be kind to yourself too. I mean,
I wrote a blog last week, I think. And I was talking about part writers, like in music, and that relates to our session last Saturday with AJ and Tim. But I said, I always love a great part writer as a musician, and it kind of like there's that level of historian, just kind of knows the history, has the vocabulary, knows how to take apart the history of whatever, and in that way, that's someone with actual experience that doesn't have 1 year's experience 20 times over. Right. You know what I mean?
Right.
That somebody that you can say, well, what if I make it more like this? Okay, yeah, I can do. There's. I don't want to say it sounds oversimplified to say somebody that's a one-trick pony or something. But
sure.
Maybe they could do lots of other things, but they're
real really in a pocket. They're in a pocket of their thing.
Their thing, and that's it.
Yeah.
And it's just that session last weekend was a case of, okay, well, we're going to make this more like a Motown feel. Okay, well, that's going to we got to tune the drums up, and we got to have, there's going to be that certain kind of feel in the fills and the cymbals and the short scale bass. He's playing thumb bass like Jamerson, and you know what I mean, all that kind of stuff. And it's like if you don't listen to that music, you don't know the difference.
So it's not only in that case, the special sauce is like, not only do you have you heard that and know what it is, but you've kind of done these things before. You know what would be required to do it, and you're not a master.
Yeah.
But you know what to do to get there, and those things happen really quickly.
Yeah.
And those are the things that actually make a difference coming through the speakers.
Right.
These tiny little things add up into being something is not exactly describable.
No. Yeah, and it's not just a surface effect.
Yes.
I remember Joe Alexander always used that term, surface effect. You can, on the surface, I try to think of a frozen pie in the frozen food section of Walmart. On the surface is a coconut pie,
right?
I mean, but is it by some master baker down the street makes it
right?
Are they the same things?
Yes.
To the untrained palate doesn't
right. Would not worry either way.
Wouldn't care either way.
Right. Yep.
What's the biblical throwing pearls before swine?
Throwing pearls before swine.
Right? Isn't that's correct?
Yeah, I don't care. I love it. Like, that's a mug.
But basically, you're doing this for someone that has no appreciation for it in the first place. But
sure.
But if you want things to work on. I talked about that with NADOC the last couple of weeks. If you want things to work on multiple levels, on the surface effect, there's the hook, and it sounds like, oh, this sounds like the 70s, or this sounds like whatever vibe you've put together. That's on the first layer, and then underneath that is lyrical, whatever techniques of writing lyrics, and it's kind of like, and a lot of times in the lyric writing stuff, there's things that are happening that you're sort of saying, but you're not telling the whole story.
Right.
You're just implying it.
Or you're giving a frame.
And that's a scale.
Yeah.
I mean, scale. That's a skill.
Right.
I mentioned like Hemingway, he had this iceberg theory of writing where like you only see a part of the iceberg,
Right.
you know, and all this stuff's underneath.
Right.
And he would just say, like, I don't know if that 6 words Hemingway thing was like he said he could tell a whole story in 6 words. Hemingway,
Okay.
in a bar or
Right.
something. I don't know what the story was, and
Right,
it was
right.
like. And he said, I can tell the whole story in 6 words because Hemingway was known for being, you know, brief and
Right.
simple in his writings.
Right. Right.
And the guy said, all right, yeah, tell me a whole story in 6 words. He's like, he goes, for sale, baby shoes never worn.
There you go.
You know what I mean?
There you go.
So
It's the whole world.
yeah, so I mean that's a novel.
That's right.
You know, right there in 6 words. So
Right.
you know, and that's all he said. So the iceberg theory of being able to get underneath all of that, not really say it or not really imply it, but you can tell that it's understood, even though all the notes aren't played or all the words aren't said.
Yes.
You know, and that's storytelling. That's musicianship. That's being a record maker.
Yeah.
That's art. You
Right.
know,
Right.
and doing it in a way that it implies something, and then everybody can get it wrong in their own way.
Exactly. And it's the best possible thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Because then it doesn't have to be necessarily a universal subject, just not bland, but it doesn't have to be completely universal for many people to grasp onto it, because of what gives to them. I mean, but that's the best possible songwriting case.
Yeah.
Where you're saying things, you know, Blackbird,
yeah,
or whatever analogy.
yeah. Blackbird, the song.
Yeah, the song.
Yeah. I mean, about the civil rights movement.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, that's...
And it has this whole epic tale surrounding that song that, you know, could be a movie.
By the time the song happened, there are many, many things that have taken place.
Yeah, and
And it can't just be, you know...
yeah, that's fascinating. Well, yeah, I mean, we got into production there and songwriting there for a little bit. I was still talking about the passion side of things. I think another thing I didn't cover in the last episode that I did want to talk about was, you know, how do you make, you know, you have to work so hard to do something like this, to do this as a career. Like if you have a dream and or you have a passion, or you want to make that your living, you want to make that your career over 40 years. Mm-hmm. You know, there's so many moves, and there's just the options are endless. The ways that I personally know, the people that I personally know that do it. Mm-hmm. You know, I haven't had like Jeremy Hummel, for instance. Like Jeremy was a teacher, you know, and then he was teaching, and then he got in Breaking Benjamin, went on the road, you know, and that relationship splintered, and he came home and immediately jumped into the bars, you know, playing with me, you know what I mean? Like we were just playing little clubs as a duo with percussion and guitar and voice, and I never heard him complain about it.
Oh no,
even once.
Oh, no.
And went right back to the teaching thing, and you know, like that's kind of, you know, that wasn't in the plan.
Right.
You know what I mean? That wasn't in the plan. The plan was, you know,
go to the heights.
Yeah,
highest,
like we're going to the Pacific Ocean. We're going to the top of Mount Everest.
Yeah.
You know, and then you have to you know, you have to enter into a different story and make that work. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of more poetic than the top of Everest in a lot of ways.
For real. And
I mean, and yeah.
I think it's some people, like Jeremy's a great example, just because he's a guy that you know had a knack for playing drums, and it kind of just became part of his language and his, you know, and kind of his day to day, in the best kind of a way, where it's a thing that you do, and it's your vocation and avocation and joy and everything. I mean, and he's kind of a laid back guy. There are many artists that are, you know, very uptight and fraught with self doubt. Jeremy is really not.
No.
You know, and so he, you know, that's a good example of you're just doing it, and all these things happen along the way.
Yeah.
based on kind of circumstance. But he was a great example of somebody who was ready. He was ready the minute he could have a major label break. He was ready the instant that was, and so, I mean, as an aside, no one is ready in this culture of your first thing, you publish your first thing you ever did when you're 16, and your whole creative world is on the internet. And maybe it's not a bad thing for people to see your growth or whatever, but the feedback is not the same as if you have a mentorship and you're really doing the extreme hard work and not just having peer review. And so
peer family. I mean, if most time your family or your peers aren't going to be as brutal as someone who it's their charge to give you the straight.
Brutal is a great word. Like you can't imagine, like the hardest sport in the world is ballet.
Yeah.
And it is not. There is nothing joyful about those rehearsals.
No.
The joy comes when you've won the house.
Yeah.
And you get that for like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
It's
is it worth it or not?
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't even think there's a scale for somebody who has the ability that always comes up, the cross section of ability and the wherewithal to do it and whatever. There are probably people with lots of ability that don't pursue anything. Many people.
Oh no, absolutely.
And it drives you crazy, especially when you see somebody like that, and you're like, oh, but that's your wish.
Yeah.
But when you see it, raw ability, you're like, come on, man.
Yeah, I don't want to project that onto you, but
yeah.
But on that note, it makes me think of. I went down to, my eldest Harlow. She did her student teaching. She's a music teacher, and she did it down in Knoxville, down in Tennessee. So she stayed down there, and her. The family she stayed with were, University of Tennessee, so they had to this day, enormous tailgaters and stuff, and
big football.
Yeah, big football, and at Tennessee. So it's the thing I thought about was and I went to the one Tennessee game with them, and I remember walking into the stadium and sitting there, and there was 90,000 people there, or whatever the hell it is. It's it's enormous.
Yeah,
the stadium, it's just enormous. And if I remember correctly, maybe I'm wrong, but at this game there was a true freshman playing quarterback.
Oh wow!
Yeah. And this stadium is full of old men that this team is their whole life.
Right.
And this kid was playing to 500 people last year.
Right.
Right. And now he's here, getting screamed at, by old men who this is their life.
Right.
And they are not kind.
They are not kind.
And it's like you're just been thrust onto this stage.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's tough.
It's tough.
Tough to do that mentally, to take that kind of abuse.
Yes.
And to keep it in perspective and not to shut down or.
And I would argue that the more successful you get, the more abuse you take, or the flavor of abuse, or the visceral, I don't know, the darkness of the abuse.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It gets darker. Yeah. I've talked about that before, different things like people, calling somebody a has-been or something that's a billionaire.
Right on.
That tours the world, you're calling, or they haven't had a hit or something in 20 years.
Okay.
They fill stadiums.
Yeah.
That's not exactly, not exactly easy.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that, but anyway, what you were saying, I always thought of that kid playing that game and people screaming at him, and
oh my gosh,
you know what I mean?
This poor guy.
Wow, 19 years old,
yeah,
playing in some little town the previous year.
Oh my gosh.
Now there he is.
Here you go, kid.
Yeah, that's that was
don't mess up.
That's his passion. That's what he wanted to do. He wanted to play college, maybe professional sports, and get thrust into that.
And talented people can be damaged by the thing where you don't have enough development.
You don't have a lot of argument, with somebody like like a Kurt Cobain or something.
Yeah.
Just like,
Yeah.
he had the headspace of a John Lennon, but not the
physical world, body,
stability.
mind, everything.
Because I mean, like John Lennon had more of an ability to be. I mean, I didn't know either one of them, obviously, but had more of an ability to be ridiculous and stand up to it.
Yes.
He could take it pretty good.
Yeah. If you take like a lot of pressure onto a person that struggles, it's rough. It's really rough.
Yeah, and then it's kind of like, people say in terms of, alcohol, drug addiction, things like that. Like it's kind of like you're not really seeking escape, you're seeking connection,
Right.
Right.
You have to quiet all these things that are happening.
Yeah.
If you have the ability to do something extraordinary, there's a lot going on.
There's a lot
going on.
A lot of people in the room.
A lot of people in the room.
if you can figure that out. And I always said that, for songwriters, songwriters are moody. Like songwriters have to be moody.
Yeah.
Because you're hanging on to shit that everybody else lets go,
Right on.
This guy can breeze, past you and say, how you doing? You're like, what the hell does he mean by that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Go on. Yeah. It's like takes, then you go, you might be 6 hours of your day,
Right on.
That interaction. Bastard. I'm going to, our next guy just, whatever. Probably had a bad day.
Right. Exactly. Ooh, that's good. That would be like, you ever see that movie High Fidelity?
Yeah.
Okay, John Cusack.
Yeah.
And they would have their top five.
Top five,
yeah. So the top five instances for moody songwriters, top five triggers for moody songwriters.
Right, that would be good.
Top five best triggers for moody songwriters, because we're going to get something out of it at the back end, hopefully.
Well, I mean, different guys, like I know Elvis Costello was one that said that he would he would deliberately screw his life up. So he could write. Yeah.
Really, Elvis Costello?
Yeah.
That man is just legendary.
Yeah, but he would literally do whatever.
Okay, so that's part of this thing.
Yeah.
That's the stuff that you don't see.
So yeah, I mean, I guess this being the second episode of the sort of following your passions and, to do or not to do, and I think we kind of last time concluded, you're just kind of, everybody starts here and you kind of go down the line and then you decide, okay, this is my stopping point. The threshold of pain. Here's my threshold of pain. This is how far I'm willing to go. Mm-hmm. Okay, this next guy, he's willing to go through there, and this guy's willing. He gets to the base of the mountain, and that's no. There's snakes up in there. I'm not going up there.
I'm not doing that.
Next guy says, I don't give a shit. I don't care. Burn the boats. Burn the boats. I'm going up.
Why do you think they're crazy in California?
They're nuts because they all went there.
They're nuts, but they all went there.
They're all
it was
descendants.
Really, really difficult.
They were all descendants of. That's a thought I never thought of.
I never thought of that either.
That's great. Yeah,
I didn't think until you like, what does it take to get past, like physically past Colorado? I don't know, but those mountains are really big.
Yeah, and you got to be out of your mind.
The people in California, you're out of your mind. These are the descendants of that, and Arnold. Yeah, Arnold's pretty good.
Nuts. Yeah,
Arnold's nuts too. He's probably more nuts than anybody.
Yeah.
He's, weirdly, I actually have a book by Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I heard it's an excellent book.
It is.
I didn't read it.
It is direct and very heartfelt. He's probably the best. He's one of the greatest examples. He's an extreme example of the things he did, but one could argue that he very well could have not been a success in anything.
Yeah.
I mean, an oiled bodybuilder that's all there is. That's all there is. It's not about, and that's what he talks about. It's like this, just ideas, this big wheel that keeps turning, that keeps getting you to the next moment. And the only difference with Arnold is that he had these techniques, physical techniques, to motivate his life and make his life better. And then he just kept going. It's a rare thing, but nuts. That's nuts.
Yeah. Well, I mean, physical things like goal setting.
Yes.
What am I afraid of this week?
Kind of. I think he kind of really did that. He really did the hard work over and over and over, because he knew, he told himself, I'm going to be an actor. I'm going to be an actor in movies. I'm going to be an actor in movies. Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably the best example of somebody that did not force anybody's hand to do anything. I mean, he's probably very forceful,
sure.
but he really did the work, like it or lump it. He to do all those things. You can't just become a governor of a state just on charisma.
No,
there has to be something that people are like, because you will be made fun of. I'm sure he was made fun of over and over until he won the governorship of California. To all the insiders are like, wow, this guy is actually dangerous. He's a dangerous candidate. He actually kind of understands because he did his homework.
Yeah.
That's that's pretty good. I mean, that should be inspirational. It doesn't have to be like, oh my God, you got to be like Arnold, know.
Well, but it's the concept behind it, not necessarily him personally.
Yeah.
But if somebody like a bodybuilder decides that I'm going to take on Hollywood, I mean, that's a Pandora's box of abuse that you're setting yourself up for.
Yep.
I'm saying, if you can just think of him as not, the Terminator or Conan the Barbarian or, any of these other movies. Yeah. It's kind of like, you think before that he says, okay, however long it took him from bodybuilder to there. Yeah. With pumping iron. And it's like they must have been merciless to him.
Oh my gosh,
Had to have been.
Yes, they were. Yeah, it was 1,000%. There's something inside of somebody that I think it's just a good example of, probably like one of the best current examples of like the stick-to-itiveness, the noise that comes at you to try to not have that affect the true thing you're trying to do. His was life goal via ba-da-ba-da-ba. Songwriters like, I really want to write a song like this. I really want to be available if something comes to me. And to do that, I don't do that. I'm not a songwriter. But I think that, keeping the wolves at bay kind of thing, in whatever way you can. And that's just a tough skin. It's just a tough skin thing of doing it over and over. It's like, what does it take to be a Hollywood actor? Well, can you sleep in a car? Yeah. Can you sleep in a car? What are you willing to do after 10 rejections to go to 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th audition, and you don't quite have a place to stay? Like that's the kind of thing. I don't know. I have this thing too, like now, with America being, it just goes right into your Western expansion is it's a hustle in the States. It's a hustle. It's a money hustle in the States. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of all it ever was. And that stated that this freedom and implied we can build industries. So I think you have to understand that culture isn't necessarily having anything to do with art too. And I think that has a negative influence, especially now when you're like, here's how you build your online presence. Here's how you build your website. Here's your business. Here's how you do all your revenue. You have to be careful. I think you just have to be careful because you're talking about passion and, in your case, songwriting, which I think that commerce is necessary. But if it starts from commerce and image, and again, the topical thing, like Joe Alexander, like the repeating keyboard part that is in stereo, that's the first thing that I want to do because I think it sounds cool. It's topical, it's not song arrangement, it's not instrument arrangement, it's not power arrangement.
Yeah. Icing, not cake.
Yeah. And I'm an icing kind of gal.
Yeah.
I'll admit it.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's hard.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's hard. It's hard to do. Yeah, it's hard to do. All of that being said, I mean, I would be kind of talking about also, I keep using this Western expansion, just kind of like going down the road to to get to, and I love your California thing. That's why those are the people that made it. They're the descendants of all the people that made it.
Like, it's not good. It's nuts. It's like Australia.
Yeah.
You know, they made their own rules. All the prisoners
the hell
down there,
how did
they
they
made
get
their
there?
own rules. How'd they get there? How'd they get there? Their rules are not. That's why skateboards came out. You know, we had diners and drive-in movie theaters in New Jersey, which is comfortable.
Yeah, nice stuff.
Nice family,
nice night out.
Nice night out. We have people who break bones on skate parks in old pools in California, and we have people riding up mountains, dangerous mountains, on their little bicycles. That's what they do.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're nuts. That's why it's interesting.
yeah. That's so good. I love that. Never thought of it that way. Never thought of it that way. That's really good.
I mean,
Keep
it's
that one.
it's mathematical. Like,
let's
they
mark
made
that.
it. They made it. What does that tell you?
What does that tell you?
What does that tell you? Like, this is really hard. There's death involved. You're not going to get to California with all your family members. You're just not. And if you're there, somebody paid the price.
It's like,
And I think it was Aunt Phyllis.
come on, Aunt Phyllis.
Come on, Aunt
Get
Phyllis.
Up, get
Look,
up. Keep
look,
moving. Keep moving.
Ow,
Your great grandson is Tony Hawk. Come on.
Hey, Ma, Phyllis fell.
Get up.
Should we turn the horse around? Nah, gotta get up the mountain before sunfall. I don't know. Look,
Your great
Aunt Phyllis.
great granddaughter
great-granddaughter
is a world class surfer. Come on.
yeah, come on. Let's go. You don't know what's going to happen in 1960, man. This is going to be good. Let's go.
That's outstanding. I love that. I love that. That's another subject we can make. I'm bringing you back on for that.
Oh, wow.
All right.
Oh,
yeah.
oh, there might be a story in there. There might be a story. There might be a song in there. There's something that I cannot write, but that's a pretty fun concept.
That is a good one. That's a good one.
They made it.
They made it. Yeah.
Now, what does that tell you? What does that tell you right there? Not right in the head. Gavin Newsom, where'd you come from?
Exactly.
Where did you come from, sir? I gather it was from your California relatives that down the line had a slip of the normal.
It's like
Had a slip of the normal. Everything went sideways for you.
it's like the 18. What's that guy? It's like the 1800 version of like David Goggins that he like ran to California. that's his ancestor. Just kept running. Ran to California. Come on, you pussies.
Come on, you pussies. You can do it. You can do it.
Everybody else has their belongings and stuff. It's like really nutty.
Did you see?
Running up the side of
Did you see
the-
Ichabod Goggins? That guy would not stop. That guy would not stop.
That's
Ebenezer Goggins.
That's
The
outstanding.
great.
That's outstanding. Yeah.
Oh, California, how you've captured our hearts.
Ain't like anywhere else.
Back to Brian
As
Wilson.
Tom Petty said.
Oh,
Yeah, it ain't like anywhere else.
it ain't like anywhere else.
Hope it don't fall into the sea. California, you've been good to me. Yeah, that's a good song.
Or as Mr. What's Up Man, Mike Nadak would say,
Yeah,
Northern California has a
brochure
appeal.
It does.
Northern California has a brochure appeal. That is Mike Nadak.
Yeah, yeah.
California has a brochure appeal. That's probably the best of Mike Nadak.
That's one of his good ones. That's one of his best.
Right there. Yeah,
I have lots of favorites.
yeah.
I have lots of favorites. All right, we'll go back. We'll move away from California before I don't know, before we piss somebody off in California. Anyhow,
Yeah.
But yeah, the other thing I was going to say with kind of doing a gig like this or whatever you want to, is kind of trying to blend the family thing
Oh my.
You know?
Yeah.
Trying to make that work. And under the, I'll say for myself, you know, under the, it's a difficult balance, I guess I can't think of anything more poetic to say, balance with that, because it's kind of like, you know, myself personally, you know, I grew up, you know, like my dad hated his job, just hated his job, just, you know, just couldn't stand it, awful. And I was always like, well, you know, I'm going to, you know, I don't want that for myself.
Right.
You know, and I don't want, you know, if, you know, for any of my children, I don't want them to
settle for something that's
or like to grow up around that.
Oh, right on. Right,
you know what I mean?
Right
around
on.
that, just that feeling of dread and despair.
Right on.
Despair is not a good word, but
well,
just like dread.
It can be.
I mean, the people that are, you know, I mean, it really affects you. So I said, I'm going to figure out a way for myself, you know, and hopefully on some level your family, you know. But the problem is when you're going to be doing that, if you're going to climb the mountain, it takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And it takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of extra time, and that takes a toll.
Yeah.
On your crew.
Yeah.
You know, so some of it, I think both of us weathered pretty well.
Yes.
Some of it, the thing that really, like, I didn't, you know, if I had it to do again, I would maybe spend a little more time. And once again, it comes down to mentorship, and you don't have anybody advising you. Right. So there are a lot of things that look like opportunities that just weren't.
Right.
So there are wastes of time.
Yeah,
you know
so the
mean?
Percentage of things that you could have been building at home,
or just hanging out,
or whatever.
Yeah,
just the quality time stuff does get wasted. X percentage. Yeah,
of just out of not knowing, or you know, just doing all this work that you think, well, this is going to give you this. You know, this is worth the time now because it's going to result in this. And a lot of that, maybe, especially like if it's musical related, you have something that you really, really feel strongly about musically, or something, or a piece of, you know, of an album, or somebody you're working with that you're producing, or you feel really strongly that it could be really a big deal. It could be a big thing for your career that would make a difference for you and your crew. And you're not taking into account who you're working with.
Right on.
Or something like that, or you're not taking into account the people around you.
Right.
You know, and their level of commitment. And we've had this conversation with people we work with sometimes, you know, that are maybe going to the wall for somebody in their clan that really doesn't give a shit as much as them.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you want to make sure, like you say, find your tribe. You want to make sure your tribe's on board.
Yeah, that, like, you have.
They're on board. They're going to go as far as you're going to go. If they're not,
then
you got to think about, you know, because then if you're playing a game, you can only get to the 50-yard line.
Right.
Then you're kind of just, you know, you're kind of like spending a lot of time with something.
Wasting your energy.
Wasting your energy and your time with something that could be spent with your family. Or
Heck yes.
Or talking to the voices in your head or something like that at home.
In my case.
In your case,
I mean, I would pile on to that sentiment with, I would have liked to, that would have been great to have mentors. I would also, and that just goes into maturity. This is like a maturity kind of thing, where the time you are there, you're still buzzing with this conversation of the currency of what's happening with whatever it is, music, life, blah, 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 blah. And so you can't completely be present. You're there and you know, you think you're doing a good job, but like you're not completely unplugged and present in a way that would be like a cool hang. Like a really cool hang sometimes, because you're just always spinning, you know, and that kind of comes with the job of all of these creative things, especially if you get to a really good operating level. like somebody who's running even somebody who's not a creator, but you're running the Kennedy Center or something.
Sure.
And you understand all the things, and you understand all the minutia of the things, and you're on all the time. And so I think that's a skill. Like, that's somebody that maybe, and some mentors wouldn't even be able to tell you how to do that at all, because the mentor we want are the guys or gals that could show you how it is done and how you navigate these things, not necessarily how you have a wonderful quality of life. That said, man, I give us a Michelin star.
Yeah.
I give us a Michelin star because, there's just like a level of consistency. And if you look at the next generation of people, like they're pretty well balanced, funny people who don't take the world as it is presented to them.
Sure.
And so, everything could always be better, but you know what? There's always time every single day to imprint on the thing that you love or whatever. But that's a hard one. That's very hard. It just takes so much time your way.
Yeah, and you want to hope that you want that you want your family to feel like there are possibilities that once again, it's like if I can say, okay, I get up today and I say, well, what am I afraid of this week, or these are my problems, but I'm going to figure it out. Yeah. You want your kids to feel that way about anything. Like I'm going to figure this out, and I'm not going to just sit here and say this is my lot in life.
Yes.
I'm going to figure it out. With my brain and my contacts and anybody I can call and whatever information that I can muster. Right. To kind of keep moving down the path. And some people don't do that. They're more apt to like, well, hey, this is the way it is. This is what you do, and you deal with that. You know what I mean? And
it just ends up being a more not even self-serving. It's not self-serving. Yeah. Self-serving is being service to yourself, which means that you're going to do the things that are cool for your tribe too.
Sure.
It's topical.
Yeah, and I mean, I think if you're looking at it like, okay, in a lot of ways, I look at it like you can't give away what you don't have. You know what I mean? If you don't have, if you don't have it in here, you don't have love to give away. You can't give it away to somebody else. You're not going to do it. So I mean, there's a level of yourself that has to be taken care of. It can't all just be responsibility. I mean, responsibility is very, very important, and accountability is very, very important. And all this, and on a daily basis, you have to take care of those things, and you have to, there are certain standards of, if you're a man, whatever, you have to provide, and you have to protect, and you have to, all those things, and you have to make money, and you have to do all these things. You can't not do those things and sit home and play video games with your kids. Right. You can't do that. But at the same time, there is a damaging level of you have to give them something, and you have to have some of it. Right, you got to keep let's get back to the unblocking. That's the kind of thing that doesn't seem like it is like you need to do. Yeah. Like as a certainly like younger men. Yeah. You don't think you're cool. You're cool. You don't need to do it. But that kind of thing, like you said, you can't be available for somebody else if you're not available for yourself. Like if you just hold in reserve, I don't know what you want to call it. Sure. Hold in reserve those things to protect yourself as you navigate through the thing. Yeah, yeah. Because it's all a level of whatnottery. Yeah, whatnottery. Yeah, it's many days, many nights I came home from that. I still come home from gigs, and you're home for a little while, and just made a whole bunch of people happy playing wherever. Yeah. And then you come home and you're like, yeah. That's what your family gets, That's what your family gets. We had this exhausted person. We had this analogy. I just love this analogy. It's like, you're home from the studio at like 2 a.m., there was like sleep-inducing pizza in there, or you're at a gig, you're home at like 2 a.m. from a gig, you're exhausted, blah, you have to get up the next day. And we just have like, our analogy is like box wine. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you have the box.
Sitting here with your rosé box wine, like spilling on your shirt as you're nodding off, to like,
the beer,
like,
the fizz wakes you up.
The fizz wakes you up.
Yeah.
And then you look at your life at that moment, you're like, oh, I'm not sure I'm doing this right. I don't know.
Maybe we went off kilter a little bit. But obviously you need a lot of support from those kind of people when you're doing something extreme, like that you're really going for it. Whether it be you're trying to run a business or you're whatever. You need a lot of support, and it's hey, you can think of only yourself, or you can think of only of others, and kind of really the whole point. Like neither one of them really works. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you just kind of got to navigate your way through it and try to impress that upon your kids that, hey, if you want to rule the world or you want to do something, everything has a price.
Everything has a price.
Everything has a price.
Everything takes time.
And everything takes time. And, along the way, you're going to see what exit you want to get off at.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep. And depending on everything else in your life. And that's really what I talk about a lot here, with different people, whether, talking with Dustin, and he talked about a lot of that kind of stuff a lot, being from where he is, like just everybody's going down the path, and they have to make a different soup,
Yes. And if it's true, let's get back to our truth thing, is that like, if that soup, your tribe, your vocation, avocation, your tribe, your family, all that kind of stuff is in a mix that is a happy thing.
Yeah.
Generally, more so than not.
Yeah.
That these relationships and conversations are cool, and you are, you can feel it.
Sure.
Then, man, that's kind of something else, especially if you're in the arts.
Yeah,
It's that is something else. Like, it takes a lot to do that thing. But if you then have the level of a generally normal, happy relationships, like you have, there are indicators.
Yeah.
And the people that do it the best can be successful at the thing.
Yeah.
But they're generally not tyrants. They're generally not. They are connectors. They're people that have a tight tribe.
Yeah.
A tight inner circle.
Yeah.
And that's wildly important.
Yeah.
Because
they're not doing it by themselves.
They're not doing it by themselves, and it doesn't have to be like this network of people. It's just your people.
Yeah, a handful of them.
That's all.
Just a handful of them.
Yeah. So. Yeah,
and then a lot of it too is like when you're, whatever it is you're making or you're doing or whatever, it's like, what was that movie? The Johnny Depp Willy Wonka.
Oh, the Johnny Depp Willy Wonka.
Yeah, where we said
woof.
And he came to the realization. He said, when I'm not enjoying myself, the candy tastes like shit. So it's like,
Yes.
Yes. And I think if everything's not in balance, like things get out of balance. That's life. Mm-hmm. Things get wildly out of balance. If you have a job like you're a musician or you're an artist or one of those kind of things, and that's what you have to do.
Yeah.
And it isn't this good music. Doesn't matter if it's James Taylor or Slipknot. Does not happen from balance. You know what I mean? It comes from unbalance.
Yeah.
But it's like, but that music doesn't get created while you're schlepping your ass up the mountain. It's when you get down the other side and you get a chance to rest a little bit and think about it. That's usually.
That's perfect.
You know what I mean? Like that's.
I love that.
You know what I mean? And it's like, no, I'm saying like, so you.
There are these things.
There has to be
are these things and statements and work that has, and they are period. If there's periods of there's always periods of difficulty.
Yeah, big ones.
And if the somebody that is making the thing is kind of true, you can hear the periods of difficulty.
Sure.
And that's valuable if you're kind of a lifelong fan of X.
Yeah.
If you're a lifelong fan of Bob Dylan, there are things that you really dislike, but you're like, that you understand why it is. And by the way, it's,
unattainable. Because we have this saying in the house, you know, and it was from a review of Metallica's
Black Album.
No, Saint Anger.
Oh, Saint Anger.
It was the Saint Anger album. Somebody reviewed it, and they gave this, you know, like kind of scathing review about the album. In the end of it, they said, yeah, but all the fans said, you know, shitty Metallica is better than no Metallica.
Boom.
You know what I mean? So, and so I have this thing, we have this thing in life of like, you know, yeah, this pizza kind of sucks, but shitty Metallica is better than no Metallica. you know what I mean? You know, so that's you know, that's basically.
I will tell you that I'm having pizza.
Yeah.
And I'm really not too worried about how this is not New York's finest.
Right on. Yeah. And I'd rather have this than none.
I would really rather have this than none.
Yeah. So
I'm watching a movie. I'm getting pizza.
Yeah. It's gonna be okay.
It's gonna be fine.
Isn't the greatest thing I've ever had? No, but. Yeah, so I think there's like you say, like when there's a dark period, there's a failed experiment, there's a a phone call. I think that was my mom. I'll call her back. Yeah. But anyhow, you know, there's a failed experiment, a difficult time. Things aren't going, but there's still demand for whatever it is. You know, you still got to get up and go to work. Still got to get up and do it. You know, you still got to put something out. Still got to release something. You got to, you know, whatever the case may be. And sometimes things just aren't that great. You know, and they just, nobody hits it every time.
Nobody hits it every time. And the thing about having people around you and maybe processes is that you do not feel like doing another record.
No.
Many times. You do not feel like doing another painting. You don't.
Yeah.
But there has to be something in place to keep you on that thing, because the periods where it all lines up, if you've done the slogging through the crap parts, then those little moments are like, oh wow, okay, great, okay. I would rather have slog through that thing all those times and then have this moment. Yeah. Because that one moment you're like, oh wow, okay, I see how that was harder and easier at the same time. It was simple. It was hard with all the stuff, but when it all lines up, it's like that's something that you can't just manufacture. It requires time and intent and a certain viewpoint.
Sure.
And so that's why the payoff is obviously, you know, great. And it should be on every level for you just personally with a tiny victory, you know, or a hit record or a hit movie, let alone that, you know. Yeah. But again, that's not the thing. The thing is the process.
Right. I think that I thought I saw this guy the other day, I can't remember who that was. Wasn't just a random YouTube video, and he was talking about, you know, the kids and everything. You're talking about manifesting. You're manifesting things you want. Manifesting. Mm-hmm. He's like, well, you don't really like manifest things. You resonate them.
Yes.
You know, you kind of
yes.
You know, you kind of like you become the thing.
Yes.
You know, like, I mean, okay, if you say, okay, I want to be a great songwriter and I want to make a record as good as Dark Side of the Moon. Well, you could sit down and write down 100 things that I would have to do to make a record that good.
Right.
You know, and that might mean, okay, well, I need this, so I got to sell these 5 things. Most people won't do that. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Or I'd like to go golfing. Yeah. Or something like that. And well, I can't do that because, you know, like, you know what to do.
Right.
You know, whatever it is, if you want to do something like that, you want to take your shot at making something that good.
Right.
You know what to do.
Yeah.
You're just not willing to do it.
Correct.
And you know, that's kind of like, so basically like these things that you kind of have this outside goal in mind, then it becomes a matter of just kind of getting yourself to resonate that you're already that, and then you just have to hang out for the time that your opportunity comes, or whatever the case may be, or however it plays out, which is not what you have in your head, but it'll go in that direction.
That's exactly correct.
You know, instead of saying, well, I'm just going to wish for this, it's going to happen.
Yes.
You know, and I think that's, you know, that mentalness of, like you were talking about Arnold Schwarzenegger, you know, like Arnold says, well, okay, I'm going to become a movie star. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, what are movie stars? Okay, okay. You know, this is what you do. Okay, I'm going to go talk to this guy. This guy's going to laugh at me. 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 And eventually, they're going to give up. They're going to give me a shot.
Even better, again with Arnold, for some freaky reason.
This is why we don't talk, why I don't plan these things.
Is that he didn't give up things that were the core of what his resonance was. Yeah. Which obviously, case in point, is accent. His kids don't sound like that.
No.
I think that is essential. Yeah. And it makes you stand out. Those individualistic things, it's not just a trait that keep those things that are nice about or cool and funky about you. No, it's a stick-to-itiveness of what actually makes your own person be able to do this thing. Don't just change it because of, don't change that because of commerce. Yeah. The commerce is essential, but the commerce comes after you're successfully resonating doing the thing. Right. And that's harder.
Well, and what you just said was, I think we had a little talk the other day. It was like, we were talking about like AI, and it's like AI can spit back to you what to do, but it only spits back to you based on what you tell it.
What are your prompts?
Yeah, what are your prompts, and what are you telling it? And it's kind of like, and like I said, it might tell you to change. Yes. These things that would maybe have a certain charm.
That would have a certain charm, but maybe,
but aren't in what you asked.
They are not in what you asked.
So you might lose.
That's
some of
part of the mentor thing, where you learn to think about the things that are going to, navigate through better, to learn better. Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's a great example. And also, I don't know, the AI thing. Yeah. The AI thing is a great example of what if you had all of human history just on a Google search? Okay, there it is. On a Google search, all of human history, everything that's ever been done. You have to find what things you fit into out of all that thing. Write me a country song that has, boots and a broken fence and a rusty truck. Those are topical, and they're like cheap metaphors. You have to learn to say, write me a story, write me a song about like the blah, 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 this relationship that has, you have to learn how to think in layers and be in layers and all that kind of stuff. I have a friend that like is a painter, and she can't paint anything without painting a painting first. And he paints a whole painting. And sometimes they're like pretty good. Like really good.
The initial one.
And then you just paint over it because your brain can't stare at a blank canvas, Really? Yeah, well, but it's the same exact thing of like, look, we're recording a song today. Maybe it's cool, but we just kind of like, we got to get through this kind of thing, because on the other side of that is something that we really want or really is inspiring. Right. It's iterations, it's editing, it's an editor, but it's pre-production, songwriting, and the editor at a book, book editor or whatever. Yeah. Anyway, enough of my yapping.
No, I thought that's pretty cool. I enjoyed that.
Well, that's good stuff. I don't know. It's all hard. It's hard work. That's the point. The perseverance, and it's not the kind of hard work that's like, boy, I got it at 8:30 this morning. I went right in there and I did all these invoices and I did all these things. Yes, that can be hard work because of X, Y, and Z. But the work of creating something is, you have your bag of tricks, but you don't always want your bag of tricks. You want to like get like your heroes, which is outside of your bag of tricks. It just takes a lot, man. And boy, some of us buy a Hofner bass, but are we going to play like Paul McCartney? No, we're just not going to do it. We're not going to do it.
But most people will buy a Hofner bass before they'll try to figure out how to play like Paul McCartney.
That's me. That's me. You're talking about me. But we said I like icing. Yeah. I'm an icing kind of guy. No, that's the joke. That's the joke.
But yeah, I mean, maybe we'll wind her down here, But basically, I think you're talking about you have something, you're following a passion, You can decide on what level you want to do that. We're just in summation. You can decide walking down the road, on the path, what level, where do you want to get off? What exit do you want to get off? Where do you want to stay?
Yep.
Or do you want to go all the way to,
what town are you going to settle down in
right on
during your Western expansion?
During your Western expansion, and then it's just kind of like your, and you got your family and your friends along, and you got your own peace of mind, your own mental health.
Yes,
and it's like what level you kind of got to find where you fit in all of this, and basically you can do it all for someone else, or you can do it all for yourself, and neither one of those really works, and you just kind of got to do the best you can, and along the way to try to leave something for the world and for your loved ones, and
yes,
you know what I mean, and have a good time doing it. Have a good time doing it.
Look,
have a good time all the time.
Have a good time all the time, Monty. That's my motto. Look, suffering is a given. I would rather do it yearning to do things that are just out of our world and our heads and what we can do.
Right on.
Than the other way around. The right way around.
That's
the wrong way.
There we go. There you go. That's good. We'll call it there. Ready, break. Cool.
Wow.
This podcast was produced by Stone State Entertainment.